Why is it that sometimes the more we plan, the more it feels like everything is falling apart? You may have worked tirelessly, saving every penny, strategizing for a future where life would be smooth, where dreams like owning a home, starting a business, or performing Hajj would come true. But then, out of nowhere, it's as if the world conspires against you. Financial crises, unexpected expenses, or even global issues like inflation or currency devaluation destroy what you built over years. The frustration and despair creep in. You look up and ask, why me? Why now? What if I told you that these moments of chaos, the heartbreak of watching your plans crumble, are not the end of the road but the beginning of something extraordinary? Stick with me until the end, because there's a perspective that can transform the way you see your struggles. Miss this, and you might regret overlooking the signs that Allah has been placing in your life all along. Let's imagine Yusuf, a middle-aged man, married with 2 kids. Yusuf had been diligently saving for years, dreaming of taking his family for Hajj. Every month, he'd set aside a small portion of his modest income, often sacrificing personal comforts. When his friends went on vacations, bought the latest gadgets, or upgraded their cars, Yusuf stayed disciplined, focused on his ultimate goal. For him, performing Hajj wasn't just a religious obligation. It was a lifelong dream, a personal milestone that he wanted to share with his loved ones. But then came the economic crisis. Overnight, the currency devalued. Yusuf's savings, which once felt sufficient, were now a fraction of what they needed to be. Prices for flights, accommodations, and everything else soared beyond reach. It was as if his years of hard work had evaporated into thin air. Sitting alone one night, staring at his bank statement, Yusuf felt crushed. He had always believed that if he worked hard and remained patient, Allah would reward his efforts. But now he wasn't so sure. Doubts crept into his mind. Had he failed? Was Allah testing him? Or worse, had Allah abandoned him? Let's pause here for a moment. Does Yusuf's story sound familiar? Maybe you're not saving for Hajj, but perhaps you've been working towards something. A business, a career goal, a family milestone, only to see it slip through your fingers. It feels unfair, doesn't it? Like the world is playing a cruel joke on you. But what if this is not a setback? What if this is part of a greater plan, a plan that's not just good but amazing? Weeks passed, and Yusuf found himself in a strange place. He no longer prayed with the same enthusiasm. He'd go through the motions, but his heart felt heavy, distant. One evening, his wife, sensing his despair, shared a story she'd heard from a scholar. She said, sometimes when a child asks their parent for something, and the parent says no, it's not because they don't love the child. It's because they have something better planned. Maybe Allah is doing the same for you. Yusuf brushed it off with a forced smile, but her words lingered in his mind. One night, unable to sleep, Yusuf began scrolling through his phone. He stumbled upon a video about a man who had faced similar struggles. The man's dream had been to start a business, but every attempt failed. It wasn't until years later that he realized those failures had taught him lessons that prepared him for an even greater opportunity. The man's story struck a chord with Yusuf. Could it be that his struggles weren't punishments but preparations? Yusuf decided to change his perspective. Instead of focusing on what he couldn't do, he started looking at what he could do. He began volunteering at his local mosque, helping organize community events. Through these activities, he met people who had been to Hajj and shared their experiences. One elderly man told Yusuf, "The journey to Hajj doesn't start when you board the plane. It starts when you make the intention." Maybe Allah is building your character and strengthening your faith so that when you do go, you'll appreciate it even more. Slowly, Yusuf's despair began to lift. He realized that his situation wasn't unique. Throughout history, people have faced trials and tribulations that tested their faith. Even the prophets, the most beloved of Allah, faced immense hardships. Yet, they persevered, knowing that Allah's plan is always greater than their own. One day, while driving home from work, Yusuf heard a sermon on the radio. The Imam spoke about the concept of trust in Allah, emphasizing that true faith means believing in Allah's wisdom, even when you don't understand it. He said, sometimes, Allah withholds something from you because He knows it's not the right time. Or maybe He's redirecting you towards something better. Your job is not to question but to trust. These words hit Yusuf like a thunderbolt. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of peace. Over the next year, Yusuf's life began to change in unexpected ways. His volunteer work at the mosque led to a part-time job coordinating charity events. Through this role, he met influential people who recognized his dedication and offered him better opportunities. Financially, things started to improve. But more importantly, Yusuf's faith was renewed. He no longer saw his past struggles as failures but as stepping stones that led him to where he was meant to be. Eventually, Yusuf was able to save enough money to perform Hajj. Standing before the Kaaba, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He realized that if he had gone earlier, he might not have appreciated the journey as much as he did now. The years of struggle had deepened his faith, taught him patience, and prepared his heart for this sacred experience. So, what about you? Are you in the middle of a storm, questioning why things aren't going as planned? Remember Yusuf's story. Remember that every setback is a setup for a comeback. Allah's plan for your future is greater than anything you can imagine. But you have to trust the process. You have to hold onto your faith, even when it's hard. And most importantly, you have to believe that what's meant for you will never miss you. Here's the takeaway. Don't let temporary hardships make you doubt permanent blessings. Life will test you, but those tests are what shape you into the person you're meant to become. And if you miss this perspective, you'll regret not seeing the bigger picture that Allah has been painting for you all along. As we conclude, take a moment to reflect. Are you ready to trust Allah's plan, even when it doesn't make sense? If this message resonates with you, share it with someone who might need a reminder. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire and uplift. Your journey is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.